Hello everyone and welcome to another devlog. Today I'm just going to show off what I've been working on recently, which is this mini game that I've constructed. I found examples of this online that some puzzle game contained, and I've kind of adapted it and made it a little different, simplified it a bit, and figured out how to do it in RPG Maker. So I have a little robot here, and that's because in the story of the game, what's going to happen is you're going to meet a guy. He's going to have a robot that's like his protector, and you fix the robot, and then he becomes the vendor as thanks for doing that. So in order to fix the robot, you have to hack into him and figure out what's wrong. So that's what I'm going to do to show off how this all ties together. And normally I would have some kind of tutorial pop up first when you first load in to explain how to do this, but I haven't written that up yet. I'll probably get to that, more as I dig into the actual content. This is kind of just me trying to get this all together and working first before I do any actual writing. Let me show that again real quick. And of course, just a simple animation that I made. Each of these is actually an event. That's a sprite sheet of just numbers, and it's just rotating while walking, and that gives the illusion of changing numbers quickly. And then the bright flash is just an animation played on itself where it highlights white, and then there's like a white box that I made with a little glow around it that plays, which is very simple animation because it's literally just a white box and it just loses opacity. Yeah, and so this puzzle is a pretty simple logic puzzle, and I have to figure out how to word it to make so it makes sense to people, because so far I feel like the biggest trouble people have had is figuring out how to even do this puzzle. And then once they got it, they can figure it out. Although I will say I think this puzzle's a little harder than intended, because I want to do the first one to be super easy, so it could be like a tutorial, and the later ones will be harder. This will probably be more around the mid-game, because my design idea for mini-games is that they shouldn't be too hard. I don't want to get people locked behind content because they can't figure out puzzles because they just want to play an RPG game. So this one might be a little tough. So to explain what's happening, these numbers on the left here are guesses for a code. As you see, if you walk up to this thing and interact with it, it expects you to input a code with 4 digits. And because it's entered manually and does not confirm which ones are right or wrong when you do that, that means there's no brute force unless you are willing to guess like 10,000 times, which I hope players don't try to do. So instead they have to sit here and kind of think about this puzzle. That's the one thing I don't like about this puzzle, though, is that it's not very interactive. You just kind of have to stare at it and then come to an answer. Usually puzzles in a video game want you to click on things and do things one at a time to be more like a video game, more interactive. But I think that kind of suits the other design of the game. It's almost like parallel to the combat, where it's like, I want you to stop and think before making a decision on each turn, So this is kind of similar to that. Obviously, you're spending more time figuring this out than any turn of combat, I would think. So yeah, what she does is she inputs these numbers, and then these are the results of these numbers that are kind of hints as to what each digit represents. So the problem that people seem to have, there's all sorts of problems that people seem to have with this, where I guess there's just a lot of numbers on the screen, and it's like, whoa! But, each of these is supposed to be like a guess of this, and this side is kind of spitting out, what are the results of that? I guess I've heard this compared to Mastermind and Wordle and stuff, and those I guess make more sense because it's a guessing game. You just throw numbers in there, and then it spits out these results instead of them just automatically being populated there. So I think because of the interactivity, maybe that makes a little more sense for people, but I don't really want to do that because, again, that's like another guessing game, and if I limit how many guesses they get, then it's like, I don't know how to limit that because they could just restart it, right? And I don't really want to make something that's infinitely random or anything like that, that restarts every time you open it. A speedrunner could then just open this and then just enter the code and already know it, and I think that's fine. So yeah, it's a logic puzzle, so you kind of just have to take the clues based on what each line has to figure out what each digit is. So this one, the check mark is the number of correct digits in correct position of the sequence, number of correct digits in the wrong position is the second one. And the third one is number of digits that aren't in the sequence. So this number doesn't appear, so I think that's what some people were throwing off. It's like, well, there's a 0 here, but it's 0 here. Or there's no 2s, I don't understand, there's no 2s down here. So basically I'll kind of run through this. So I'm trying to figure out what each position is in the code, right? So say you have here, you have 2 digits that are right and in the right position. And you have that here as well. And you kind of notice here that these both have a digit in the same position. So you kind of maybe guess like, oh, maybe this is one of the correct digits, since these both have 2 correct digits. And then you can kind of guess this one has 3 that are right and 1 that is wrong. So that's like almost all the digits are right. And you can see like, oh, 1 5, 1 5, 9. You kind of piece together each thing, each slot to guess. So 1 is here, that means the first digit is probably 1, right? And then as you go down the line, you get more clues and figure out more things, like there's a 0 here and there's a 0 here, but there's only one of these that's wrong, whereas 3 of these are wrong. There's 1 right, so in order for this to be right, it would have to be in the correct position. So is this correct? Because it's down here as well. We already know that it can't be, because this isn't a check mark, so this can't be the correct position for it. So therefore, if this isn't the correct position, then it also can't be correct, because it's in this puzzle. So that means it has to be wrong, right? So this now becomes the 1 that's the X. That means all 3 of these other digits are correct. And we know, we're assuming that this one's in the correct position because that's up here as well. So now we have just 1, 5, and 8 to worry about. Whereas it says 1, 4, 2, 9. So now I have to figure out between these what's right and what's wrong. And then down the line, you keep deducing each digit until eventually you come up with this. Sorry for the spoilers there. I just started realizing maybe I don't need to explain this whole puzzle. I was hoping just to kind of give steps so you kind of get the idea of how the puzzle is solved. And that's just another part of the game, because, you know, it's something to break up the combat, something else to do, something to stop and think, so you're not constantly just like doing stuff. Something to relax a little bit in between all the dialogue and combat. So I guess that's all I have for today, so I'll see you guys next time.